Hello, welcome to my channel, and thank you for being here. Today I'll discuss two images, both from Johannesburg. And the caption reads, "The suburb of Pageview falls prey to separate development and forced removals. Johannesburg, 1983." This image was made um, suppose soon after my arrival in Johannesburg in 1983. That's the year I arrived in Johannesburg um, to base myself there as a photographer. And that arrival was on a return from almost a year, kind of backpacking in Europe, sort of traveling around. I've traveled through many countries in that period: the UK, France, Holland, Germany, Italy, and even up to Sweden and Denmark. And it was a very formative period in my life. I was 24 years old, 24, 25. And I'm very grateful for that experience of traveling. But on my return, I hadn't actually figured out I'd left from Durban and and then left a very young developing for Afripix at that point in time. And uh, as I left, I actually went out as an ambassador for Afripix to meet with the big agencies like Magnum and Network. I mean, I knew nothing about photography at that point in time, so I don't think I was the best ambassador. But on my return, I kind of just intuitively, my plane landed in Johannesburg. I didn't have the money to get back to Durban, and Afripix existed. It had an office. I had Afripix members, Peter McKenzie and his wife Monifa McKenzie, and then of course Paul Weinberg, who were happy to help me find my feet and give me accommodation and things like that. So I was staying at this point in Brixton with Paul Weinberg when I made this image. It's a couple of months later, and I would walk from Brixton to Joburg Park, and we were in the South African Council of Churches, where the Afripix offices were located. And so this would be a kind of a scene as I kind of took different routes exploring the city that I came across. And so, this was the tail end of the destruction of places like Pageview and um, I'm forgetting the names of the other suburbs that were uh, you know forcibly removed to places like Lenasia. And so one might say a happy coincidence that I was able to produce this image that does capture that essence of the destruction of communities that the South African state was very happy to engage in. I've discussed this quite a bit in this project thus far, because it was a huge issue, and it's one that's been a recurring one throughout the the history of apartheid in particular, which had an obsession with moving people around to fit into the checkboard that it was trying to create of this separating people. And the next image that you're seeing now, the caption reads, "The city of Johannesburg after the fall of apartheid and white flight, Braamfontein, 1999." And I photographed Johannesburg for several months as a project um, in the late 1990s, in the 1990s, that is, and into the early 2000s, primarily for an exhibition that I was invited to be a part of, called African Cities. and it showed in 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 I'm forgetting the French the the name of the French town that it showed in, but it showed in France. And this was one of the many images that made up my contribution to that exhibition. And I think it does kind of capture that kind of um, a descent almost that happened in Johannesburg, in the big cities, where white uh, Afri- Black African people in particular, myself included, had descended on these cities that were designed to be for white people and white commerce and white business. They were designed for that express purpose. Black people lived on the outskirts. They came into the city to work and they left. There was no place for them to live. And when black people moved into the cities, white people left because an underlying aspect of South African politics has been that of swart gevaar, the black peril, and uh, and whites left en masse from the cities. The the owners of the cities, which were from um, the real estate, insurance, banking sector, mining, who actually owned the city, tried to mothball as many buildings as they could and retain what they could. But the efforts to retain some sort of order in the city, and Johannesburg was a kind of a city that, apart from Hillbrow and surrounding areas like Brixton and Berea and had never really made an effort to make those cities hospitable for actual human habitation. This was a mining town, and that predominated. The they just really, apart from in the northern suburbs that were close to the city, beautiful uh, uh, suburbs of Parkview and places like that, Houghton, workers could bugger off to Randburg or somewhere else, I'm talking about white workers, or the East Rand or somewhere else, So, so there was a kind of a free for all in the way that black people descended on the city, and I wrote an artist statement that I think also kind of captures the mood of that kind of anarchy, that that kind of uh, preceded and accompanied the black occupation of the city of, and it was a wonderful thing that black people could find a foothold in the city, but they had to do it largely organically, and it took quite a while for the city to respond with housing programs and with all the difficulty that ensured, because a big problem in South Africa has been the lack. I'm talking about post apartheid South Africa has been the inability for politics and commerce and business um, to find a commonality. This country is owned by white people to this day. Primarily, if you look at the stock exchange, 95% of it is white owned, and it's governed by black people. And where you have that huge dichotomy, you won't find easy solutions for the people who are primarily black and and dispossessed and uh, and uh, hard done by in many, many different ways. And so um, the city of Johannesburg, as I understand it, continues to struggle, even more so now with the effects of the collapsing neoliberal Western economy that is collapsing in free fall. The the Financial Times. I spent years trying to read the Finance Times to try and understand what was happening. It's an act of faith that is being propagated there, and it's got very little uh, um, connection to reality. The reality is that the Western system, economic system, um, is collapsing, and that's not to say that capitalism is collapsing, because Asia, um, who before they were destroyed by the Opium Wars 200 years ago and colonialism, um, had a grip on how to produce and create wealth. So that shift is taking place, and that hopefully is what might save our uh, 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 our long-suffering South African economy. Well, and by that I mean the economy for the people, not just for a small white elite. So we look forward to a change that will make these kind of images a thing of the past. So I'll end it there and say thank you for watching. More information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you like this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow.